So in our boil kettle, we've probably collected somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 gallons worth of wort. We've now got a dry mash tun, and in our sparge water, we've got 6.2 gallons of 180, 160 degree water. Remember, this is hot from when we left it. Because it is a large thermal mass, it will stay hot for quite some time, so you don't have to worry about being at 185. Just let it go where it goes. So we got 6 gallons. That's about 50 pounds, more than most people would like to lift. So take off your mash tun lid. Get your water bailer again. Bail a few ladles worth of water. And when it gets to an easy height, or easy weight, go ahead and pour the remainder of your sparge water in your mash tun. Take your mash spoon, stir it up, and we're just going to put on the lid to retain heat at this point. Any conversion's already happened, so we can cut it loose immediately. We don't have to wait 60 minutes. Some people like to wait 5 or 10 minutes to let the grains kind of settle. But again, in my stainless steel braided mash tun, I haven't had any problem with stuck sparges. So if it makes you feel any better, you come down here, you can do a second Vorloff. Remember, we Vorloff until we see clear liquid. At that point, we remove the pan and we continue to lauter. And this will probably take 20 to 30 minutes again. We'll lauter until we get our pre-boil volume, what we're hoping to have to boil to make our beer. In this case, we wanted 12 gallons of beer post-boil, but we're going to lose beer through thermal expansion. It's going to look bigger than it actually is by 5%. We're going to lose beer by evaporation. Usually they count for a gallon an hour. So we have that 12 gallons, we add a gallon for evaporation, and we'll add a half gallon for kind of miscellaneous things like hop debris and break material. So that brings us up to about 13.5 gallons. So we're going to collect until we see 13.5 gallons. Even if it's still trickling, resist the urge to take every drop, because the stuff that you're collecting at the end is usually pretty weak, and it's going to water down your beer. No matter how long you think you want to boil for, it's just longer time that you need to boil. So at the point we collected 13.5 gallons of wort, we closed the valve on the mash tun, we moved it out of the way. At this time, it's a good time to pitch the grains, feed them to the chickens. It's also a good time to start your sanitization. And you've got your 2 fermenters here, and I have another section talking about sanitizer, what kind of stuff you want to run. But it's good to run bucket of sanitizer, put it in half, swish it around, and keep your tools in here, such as your hydrometer and your siphon hoses. This is crunch time. This is everything with the boil and past is going to be pretty crucial that you need to stay clean. Everything, especially post-boil. So we've got 13.5 gallons of wort. Kind of mystery wort. We don't know what's going on. We don't know if we did really awesome in the mash, got high efficiency, maybe an 80, 85%, or if we shit the bed, 55, 60. So the only way we can tell is take about 8 ounces of wort and bring your baler or your saucepan again. And the purpose of this is we take it out. This is after you stir it, by the way, to kind of make sure everything's even. Take it out and let it cool. You can let it cool by air. It'll take about 20 minutes, but we don't have 20 minutes. So the best thing to do is start a little water bath, put it in there, stir it. You don't have to be clean because this is going back in the boil kettle. The purpose is to bring this down to 68 Fahrenheit so we can actually take a reading. If you take a reading at 150 Fahrenheit, you're probably going to break your hydrometer. If you take a reading at 120 Fahrenheit, you're not going to break your hydrometer, but the reading is not going to be what it needs to be. It skews it. You can do a hydrometer adjust with software, but for simplicity's sake, bring it down to 68. Take your hydrometer, pour it in here, take a reading. This is just water. It's going to read 1. But any pre-boil gravity could read anywhere from 1020 to 1060, 1070, 1080, depending on what kind of beer you're making. So, if I read it as a 1020, am I screwed? Well, let's think about this. Because you took this here, does it mean your beer is going to be weak? No. We have several factors to include. This isn't your starting gravity of your beer, because we lose water to evaporation, like making a soup. If at first it's bland, boil it down, get rid of some of the water, make it more dense. If we were predicting maybe a 1045 starting gravity or pre-boil gravity, and we had 1020, okay, there's reason for concern. At that point, you could make a commitment to boil longer, to lose more evaporation. You could pull back your bittering hops so your beer is not so bitter. Or C, what's a great plan, is to add a little dry malt or liquid malt extract to bring up the gravity. It's kind of a cheat, but that's okay. Once we hone our numbers, we get our efficiency down, you'll be within a few points and where you need to go with this. So we're coming up to boil. When we start our boil, you can add your hops if you do a 60 minute, if you do 30 minute, and then you start your prescribed boil from there. In the meantime, we've got everything. It's in sanitizer. We're cleaning out our mash tun, and we're starting our boil. So I'll see you guys soon. So we've been boiling for 40 minutes, and we're 20 minutes from the end of the boil. And at this point, we're kind of at a fork in the road, or a crux. In the event that you're going to add anything that isn't hops, it has to be now, because 20 minutes of boiling temperature gives it all the time it needs to sanitize. That might include Whirlfloc or any fining agents, any hot side fining agents, or an immersion chiller. And we talk about that in another section as far as your gear goes. So if you're going to chill the traditional way, put your immersion chiller in here now, and it'll get sanitized as it boils. There might be a 20-minute hop addition that you need to do. Otherwise, we're going to no-chill. We're off-grid here. We don't have running water, and we have the benefit of very cool nights in the summertime, so we're going to do this no-chill. So we boil for another 20 minutes, and we're at 0. At that time, we're going to flame off or knock out, turn off the flame, put our sanitized lid on, and I like to put a brick or something on top of here just to kind of keep the wind and keep it down tight. It's been my experience with our cold Montana nights, if I can flame out at about 8 p.m., then I can wake up the following 8 a.m. and have a beer that's about ready to pitch. You know, your mileage may vary. Obviously, you're in a hot temperature, you can't do that, and you should probably chill, but most people are on grid, and the immersion chiller works well. This, of course, assumes you're out in summertime and in Texas, where your groundwater might be 93 Fahrenheit. It's just not going to work. You have to make other accommodations. So let's come back in the morning and see what we do. It's bright and early in the morning, some 12 hours later, and we're coming back to hopefully chilled wort. So if you take a feel to the side, you should be able to tell if it's relatively close, but we can't trust that. So what we're going to do is, in our Sani bucket, we've got our hydrometer, our thermometer, our siphoning hose, and we've also got a spoon. So take your spoon, take your ladle, go in here, stir your 12 gallons around, get it equal, get it even. Take your thermometer and measure the temperature. If we're at 70, 68 or below, then we're good to go in the buckets. If not, you have to chill it another way. And we could talk about immersion chiller again, or a cooler water bath. But it's probably just best not to disturb it. Give it those couple extra hours if you have cooler than 68 in your forecast. So we've got our 68 Fahrenheit wort. We've got 2 fermenters that have been sanitized with the tools in them. And we've got our mash tun, which is now our water bath, where you've hopefully run about 40 quarts, 40 liters of 64 Fahrenheit water. And that's going to be our bath. So at this point, you're going to take your sanitized hydrometer and you just dip it in here. We dip it in here because after you move it to here, you want to oxygenate it. After you oxygenate it, it's hard to make a reading. So we read it in here. The wort is all kind of calm, all kind of still. Okay, ding, ding, ding. Okay, we're at 1048. In BrewToad or your brew software, put down 1048. Take a note. How much volume do you have? That'll help us find our efficiency numbers. So we're right on par at 1048, and we do have our 12 gallons, which is perfect. That never happens like that. So now it's the siphon time. You can use an automatic siphon, or you can use the poor man siphon. Again, I would ordinarily use my stiff-walled half-inch high-temperature hose, but I have that in my Korea rig and not here. So you've sanitized your hands in there, dipped them. This has been sitting there overnight. If you put this in here, some guys start a siphon with their mouth. I've never had any problems with it, but some people are particularly anal. So if you submerge all of your hose in here and fill it up with water, or fill it up with wort rather, put your thumb over it, pull it out, put it down your bucket, it'll start running. I'd probably do that again. After you fill this one up to about 6 gallons, you're going to move it over to the second one and start on that one too. This one's a little bit trickier because you're going to run into some particulate matter at the bottom, but that's okay. If you break siphon and it's light enough for you, go ahead and grab the pot and pour the rest of it in your second fermenter. At that point, you put the lids on and you'll shake them. You want to shake them for about 45 seconds to oxygenate them. After that, you're going to put them in your cooler here, and you should have run water about 40 quarts worth, and my preferred temperature is 64 Fahrenheit on a water bath. Then you'll grab your favorite yeast and you'll just open it up and you'll pitch on top, and you'll open up one packet for here and you'll put on here. This optimally should be in a dark, stable, temperatured place. So examples are crawl spaces, closets that don't get exceedingly warm, any place that's air conditioned. My favorite is a well-insulated shop with a cement floor, never budges. Of course, you can come in and you can kind of dictate the temperature, say a frozen 2-liter water bottle in the morning and one at night, but it's better just to have it in a place that's stable. And we're going to let that go for 10 days. Do resist the urge to check the gravity. If you can see airlock activity, even if you can't, that's not always a good indicator, but if you could smell the beer percolating, fermenting, then you're on the right path. And 98% of the time, if you pitched at an appropriate temperature, say 68 Fahrenheit, if you pitched healthy yeast that haven't been on the top of a can for 2 years in a truck, you're going to have fermentation, so don't worry. Let's come back in 10 days.